Good evening. Good evening. Karan is.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Are you in the middle of the night, Karan?
Yes,
You can watch the recording later. I hope you know that.
yes, sir. But I don't feel sleepy, so I watch.
हाँ वैसे भी your generation तो sleeps at I don't know 2, 3.
इससे सो जाते हैं।
Okay. चलो. I'll not hold you guys for long. There's a छोटा सा accounting standard that I want to discuss with you. IFRS 5, non-current assets held for sale and discontinued operations, linked closely with IAS 36. ठीक है. Now, what do we mean by non-current assets held for sale? So there is held for use and held for sale. Held for use means you intend to continue using that asset in the future. That is what we mean by held for use. And what do you mean by held for sale? Now you have made up your mind that I don't want to use this asset anymore. At the first available opportunity, I want to sell it off. Now, the whole idea of non-current assets is that these, have I started the recording? Yes. The whole idea of non-current assets is that they are intended to be held for more than 12 months from the balance sheet date. They are expected to generate future economic benefits. They are not meant for resale. These were some of the defining characteristics of a non-current asset. And now you are going back on all of these. You are going to sell the asset. You don't intend to hold it for long. You want to offload the asset at the first available opportunity. So this is an item which was a non-current asset till yesterday, but now because of some changes in your decision, the classification has changed, which is why the presentation in your financial statements also has to be different. Now, a non-current asset or a disposal group should be classified as held for sale if its carrying amount will be recovered primarily through a sale transaction rather than through continuing use. So, the intention is not to continue the use of the asset, but the intention is to sell it off at the first possible opportunity. A disposal group is a group of assets and possibly liabilities that the entity intends to dispose of in a single transaction. Basically, this is like a CGU that the entity wants to dispose of. Now, say for example, there is a company like ITC, which has multiple divisions, and there is one hotel, one small hotel that they want to dispose of. That could be a disposal group. Now, IFRS 5 requires the following conditions to be met before an asset or disposal group can be classified as held for sale. So, there are seven conditions. All the conditions have to be fulfilled. Which are these seven conditions? First one, it should be available for sale in its present condition without making any modification or extension. So, if the question says that, we want to sell the building or we are intending to sell the building, but after some repair maintenance work is done, then no, then the first condition is not fulfilled. अभी जैसा है वैसे का वैसा you want to sell it off without making any changes to the situation as is. Then the sale is highly probable. Chance of selling is greater than chance of not selling. The management is committed to a plan of sale. That means in the board meeting, a decision has been passed, a resolution has been passed. You can check the minutes of the board meeting to verify that. Then active program is on to locate a buyer. That means, you have given an advertisement in a newspaper or you have publicized on, through online media or through, different apps that you intend to sell this particular building or you intend to sell your AC. So actively you are trying to locate a buyer. Then item is being marketed at a reasonable price in relation to its current fair value. So if the current fair value is 500, then the price at which you want to sell has to be close to 500. If the current fair value is 500 and you are trying to sell it at 7,000, then you know for a fact that nobody is going to buy it, right? A 3-year-old second-hand laptop, you know at what value it can be sold. So when you try to market the product, it has to be at a price which is close to this fair value, reasonable with respect to that fair value, not exorbitantly high or low. Sale is expected to be completed within 1 year from such classification. This is one word I hate. Expected to be completed. Expectation is a very difficult thing to, actually see through. Anyway, they say don't expect things from people. Why are you expecting things from financial statements in the first place? You It might not happen, but expectation and intention are two words on which a lot of our financial reporting is based. And it is unlikely that the plan will be withdrawn. The chances of withdrawal of the plan are pretty slim. So, if all the seven conditions are fulfilled, then that particular non-current asset will be considered as held for sale. And assets classified as held for sale should be measured at lower of carrying amount and fair value less cost to sell. ठीक है. When where fair value less cost to sell is lower than the carrying amount, the item is written down and loss is shown as impairment loss. So carrying amount is 10,000, fair value less cost to sell is 8,000. Write it down to 8,000. The difference of 2,000 will be your cost to sell. ठीक है. Where fair value less cost to sell is lower than carrying amount, the item is written down and loss is shown as impairment loss. What is impairment loss? Impairment loss is a situation where recoverable amount is less than carrying amount, which is exactly what is happening here. And where fair value less cost to sell is more than the carrying amount, the item is shown at the carrying amount. Of course, then it will, because that is the lower of the two values. And very important, an asset held for sale is not depreciated even if it is being used. If you remember properly, the reason why we charge depreciation is it is an application of matching principle, right? Income from that item is going to P&L, so expense for that particular asset has to be spread over its useful life. Now, this item is going to be disposed of in less than 12 months, which means whatever is the profit or loss on disposal, that is anyway going to P&L, right? Now, you don't need to distribute the cost over 2, 3, 4 years because asset is getting out of your balance sheet in 12 months. So, no need to calculate depreciation. ठीक है. So this is the first part. And where non-current asset is measured using revaluation model and the asset gets classified as held for sale. ठीक है. If reval model is used and asset meets the criteria to be classified as held for sale, it should be revalued to its fair value before reclassification. आपको अगर वो याद होगा what we did in investment property, PPE to investment property to PPE, investment property to inventory, inventory to investment property. Revaluation first, reclassification later. Revaluation is done as per the old classification. Say for example here, if reval model is used and asset is used and the asset is now classified as held for sale, so if it is PPE, then revalue the item as per the PPE rule, credit the amount of revaluation gain to revaluation surplus OCI. It is again revalued to lower of carrying amount and fair value less cost to sell. The difference is selling cost and should be charged against profit. Now, to give you an example, Ria Limited held an item of PPE. Ria Limited uses the revaluation model for all items of PPE. The amount in books of accounts is 1 lakh. And this was companies using the revaluation model. The asset gets classified as held for sale. On this date, the fair value is 1 lakh 8,000. Now, this is an item of property, plant, and equipment. The fair value is 1 lakh 8,000. Whatever is the fair value, you revalue the asset to that amount, right? Which means you record an entry non-current asset account debit to revaluation surplus. ठीक है, with 8,000 asset का value आ गया 1 lakh 8,000 पे. Now change the classification, and after an asset is classified as held for sale, it is valued at the lower of carrying amount and fair value less cost to sell. यहाँ पे it was only revalued at the fair value, which is 1 lakh 8,000. But after its classification changes, it is not revalued at fair value. It is valued at lower of carrying amount and fair value less cost to sell. तो वो जो डिफरेंस है 2,500, which was the estimated cost to sell, that is shown as योर सेलिंग कॉस्ट. ठीक है. पहले रीवैल्यू करो अकॉर्डिंग टू द पीपीई क्लासिफिकेशन, नॉन करंट असेट टू रिवैल सरप्लस हो गया. यू ब्रॉट द नॉन करंट असेट पीपीई टू इट्स फेयर वैल्यू, उसका क्लासिफिकेशन चेंज करो. नाउ द रूल फॉर नॉन करंट असेट हेल्ड फॉर सेल विल अप्लाई. व्हाट इज द रूल? लोअर ऑफ carrying amount or fair value less cost to sell. Carrying amount after this entry is 1 lakh 8,000. Fair value less cost to sell is 1 lakh 8,000 minus 2,500, which is 1 lakh 5,500. ठीक है. So keep these steps in mind. Revalue the asset as if it is PPE. Change the classification. Revalue again. But now the rule is asset held for sale वाला rule. ठीक है. So see, whatever you are trying to do is you are reflecting the economic reality of the transaction. पहले revalue किया, PPE के हिसाब से. Now you know that this asset is going to be sold in the next 12 months. So whatever is the difference cost to sell, उसको selling cost करके show it in the uh, P&L account directly. Revalue first, reclassify later, difference goes to selling cost. ठीक है. So is fair value less than, is fair value less cost to sell less than carrying amount? If the answer is yes, asset is shown at fair value less cost to sell, difference is impairment loss. Is fair value less cost to sell less than carrying amount? Answer is no. Asset is shown at carrying amount on the date of reclassification. No need to record depreciation. One very important point, इसको balance sheet में कैसे दिखाएंगे? Say for example, till last year the building was here or the machinery was here under property, plant and equipment. Now its classification has changed. उसको write it down below current asset as a separate line item. ठीक है. Separate line item called non current asset held for sale. This is how you will show it in the balance sheet. ठीक है. अलग से below current asset, not as a part of current asset, cash के नीचे, but as a separate line item. This is not a current asset. What is the name of the standard? The name of the standard is non current asset held for sale. So please give that much respect to the name. IFRS 5 states that assets classified as held for sale should be presented separately from other assets in the statement of financial position. इफ इट इज अ डिस्पोजल ग्रुप, ठीक है. डिस्पोजल ग्रुप मतलब आईटीसी के 50 होटल्स में से इट इज सेलिंग ऑफ वन होटल. तो टेक द टोटल ऑफ ऑल असेट्स, शो देम एज अ सिंगल लाइन आइटम. टेक द टोटल ऑफ ऑल लाइबिलिटीज, शो देम एज अ सेपरेट लाइन आइटम. ठीक है. लाइबिलिटीज ऑफ अ डिस्पोजल ग्रुप क्लासिफाइड एज हेल्ड फॉर सेल शुड बी प्रेजेंटेड सेपरेटली फ्रॉम अदर लाइबिलिटीज. असेट्स एंड लाइबिलिटीज का सेम बिहेवियर है. टेक द टोटल, शो इट एज अ सिंगल लाइन आइटम. And if where an asset or disposal group is classified as held for sale after the reporting date, but before the issue of financial statements, excuse me, details should be disclosed in the notes. This is a non-adjusting event. What is adjusting and non-adjusting event? We will see on Thursday. ठीक है. IAS 10, which is the last of the छोटा accounting standards. And what kind of disclosures are required? Description of the non-current asset and because of what facts and circumstances is the classification changing. तो आपको इसको चेक करना है and that is pretty much all that you have to do. ठीक है. So in case of non-current asset held for sale, presentation मतलब on the face of balance sheet, show it as a separate line item, disclosure कर दो, description दे दो of the non-current asset and facts and circumstances which caused you to, change the classification, and that's that. Yes, Shubh.
So I didn't get that group wala thing.
So what did you get there? क्या समझा आपको बताओ.
नहीं
मैंने क्या
मतलब
एग्जांपल दिया?
नहीं वो नहीं समझ में आया, इसलिए मतलब आपने बोला ना कि एसेट एंड लायबिलिटी कुछ साथ साथ में ग्रुपिंग करके लिखना है, तो वो
So if
confusing हो रहा
there are 25 hotels that I have, and out of that one hotel I am trying to sell off, then all the assets of that hotel, instead of showing them one by one, I will take the total of all assets and write it as one single line item. उस पर्टिकुलर होटल डिवीजन का जो भी लाइबिलिटीज होगा, 50 लाइबिलिटीज होगा, तो आई विल add up all the liabilities and show them as a single line item in the financial statements. ठीक है.
Sir, when you are saying one hotel, then we are telling about like in that hotel, whatever assets is there, we'll show it as separate thing.
Yeah. Remind me to tell you something at the end of the class about one AFM recording. Huh? Remind me. I'll tell you at the end, not right now. ठीक है. Have a look at this question. शुभ क्वेश्चन पढ़ो तो.
Required. Can the property be classified as held for sale? Question. Hyssop is preparing its financial statements for the year ended 31st December 2007. On 1st December 2007, the entity became committed to plan to sell a surplus office property and has already found a potential buyer. On 15 December 2007, a survey was carried out and it was discovered that the building had dry rot and substantial remedial work would be necessary. The buyer is prepared to wait for the work to be carried out, but the property will not be sold until the problem has been rectified. This is not expected to occur until summer of 2008.
Now, one of the first conditions for non-current asset held for sale classification is that the asset should be available for sale in its current condition without any modification or repairs. Look at the second line in the second para. A survey was carried out and it was discovered that the building had dry rot and substantial remedial work would be necessary. And the property cannot be sold until that is rectified. Which means, can the property be sold in the current condition as is? No. So the very first condition for classifying that item as non-current asset held for sale is not getting fulfilled. So right, the syntax of writing the answers. Write down the provisions of the standard first. Okay. Up in a question like this, please pay attention. I have written all the seven conditions, but you know for a fact that the first condition itself is getting, disqualified. So in your final exam, you are not supposed to write all the seven conditions. Be smart. Condition number, see, when you want to show that this item is to be classified as held for sale, अगर prove करना है कि this is an item which should be classified as held for sale, all seven conditions should be fulfilled. But to prove that this is not held for sale, even if you disprove one condition, your job is done, right? So don't spend time in trying to disprove and trying to talk about other conditions. Condition one fail हो गया मतलब it cannot be classified as held for sale. So write down the first condition that it should be available for sale in its present condition without modification. Then mention the fact that due to substantial remedial work that is required, the building is not available for sale in its present condition, hence it cannot be classified as held for sale. See, these are some points that you should remember when you are writing the exam. Na? If you want to prove that this is a non-current asset held for sale, you will have to prove all seven. एक एक करके आपको prove करना पड़ेगा. Remember what we used to do in IAS 37? We used to prove all the four conditions: present obligation, past obligating event, probable that there will be outflow, and reliable estimate of the obligation can be made. To say that a provision should be recorded, all four conditions have to be proven. If you want to show that it is not a non-current asset held for sale, then you have to disprove only one condition. एक को भी disprove कर दिया, your job is done. So be smart in the exam. Don't waste your time writing other points. Otherwise, you will never be able to complete your paper. ठीक है? चलो. On 1st of Jan 2001, AB acquires a building for 2 lakh with an expected life of 50 years. ठीक है. On 31st of December 2004, AB puts the building up for immediate sale. Cost to sell the building are estimated at 10,000. Required, outline the accounting treatment if the building had a fair value at 31st of December 2004 of 2,20,000 or 1,10,000. Date of acquisition है 1st of Jan 2001. Cost of acquisition है 2 lakh. Expected life है 50 years. SLM depreciation will be 2 lakh minus 0 upon 50. That is 4,000. ठीक है. Change in classification is happening on 31st of December 2004. How many years have gone by? 2001, 2, 3, 4. 4 years have gone by. 4 years का depreciation is 4,000 into 4, 16,000. Carrying amount is 1,84,000. ठीक है. Non-current assets held for sale, उसका classification has changed. It should be shown at lower of carrying amount or fair value less cost to sell. Carrying amount कितना 184. फेयर वैल्यू कितना 220. कॉस्ट टू सेल कितना 10,000. सो फेयर वैल्यू लेस कॉस्ट टू सेल इज 2,10,000. ठीक है. सो लोअर ऑफ द टू कंटिन्यू टू शो इट एट 1,84,000. सेकंड सिचुएशन में द fair value is 1,10,000. You should show it at lower of carrying amount and fair value less cost to sell. Carrying amount 184, fair value less cost to sell कितना है 1,10,000 minus 10,000 1 lakh. What is the lower of the two? 1 lakh is the lower of the two. ठीक है. So you will have to write it down from 1,84,000 to 1 lakh and the difference should go to impairment loss. This is specifically what IFRS 5 expects us to do. ठीक है. स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड है, नथिंग कॉम्प्लेक्स, छोटा सा अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड है, विच इज वाई आई एम डूइंग इट ऑन अ वीकडे इवनिंग को, रात को 10:30 को. आई विल नॉट डू एम्प्लॉय बेनिफिट्स, डोंट वरी. नाउ changes to a plan of sale. If sale does not take place within 1 year, see, you said that it is expected that the sale will be completed within 1 year. Now, if the sale does not take place within 1 year, IFRS 5 says that an asset can still be classified as held for sale if the delay has been caused by events or circumstances beyond the entity's control, and there is sufficient evidence that the entity is still committed to the sale. Maybe, because say COVID like lockdown ho gaya, so, the company wanted to sell the asset, but because of that, the sale could not happen. Or, there was a natural disaster, which is why the sale could not happen. But if it is not because of if it is because of some other reason, then the classification will revert. If the criteria for held for sale are no longer met, then the entity must cease to classify the assets as held for sale. The asset or disposal group must be measured at the lower of its carrying amount before it was classified as held for sale, adjusted for any depreciation, amortization, or revaluations that would have been recognized had it not been classified as held for sale, and its recoverable amount at the date of subsequent decision not to sell. Any adjustment required is recognized in profit or loss as a gain or loss from continuing operations. Pay attention. Asset acquired for 1 million, useful life 50 years, date of acquisition 1st of Jan. Asset classified as held for sale on 31st of December 2005. On this date, fair value was 895, cost to sell was 10,000. What is the carrying amount on this date? 1 million divided by 50 is the depreciation per year. 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 साल का depreciation gets you a carrying amount of 9 lakh. Fair value less cost to sell is 895 minus 10,000, that is 8 lakh 85,000. So it should be valued at lower of the two, carrying amount or fair value less cost to sell. Carrying amount is 9 lakh. Fair value less cost to sell is 8 lakh 85,000. Value it at the lower of the two. Impairment loss to non-current asset 15,000 kar do. And now after this entry, the value of the asset is 8 lakh 85,000. Classification of the asset has changed. Are you with me so far? Okay. Now, on 31st of December 2006, company retracted the offer to sell. Unka man badal gaya and is not actively looking for a buyer. So the asset will be removed from held for sale classification. From 31st of December 2005, depreciation was not charged. Okay, why? Because the classification had changed. Now, what was the original per annum depreciation? 1 million upon 50, that is 20,000. What are they saying? When the classification changes back, okay, the asset or disposal group must be measured at the lower of the carrying amount before it was classified as held for sale, adjusted for any depreciation, amortization, or revaluations that would have been recognized had it not been classified as held for sale. मतलब if the held for sale classification होता ही नहीं, तो what would have been the written down value on 31st of December 2006? 1 million minus 6 years का depreciation, correct, which is how much? 1 year minus 6, sorry, 1 million minus 6 years का depreciation 8 lakh 80,000. ठीक है. And recoverable amount at the date of subsequent decision not to sell. अब 31st of December 2006 को recoverable amount is 8 lakh 75. ठीक है. Carrying amount कितना था? Because of held for sale classification, you had taken the carrying amount as 885. Now they are saying this asset has to be valued at lower of recoverable amount at the date of subsequent decision not to sell, या फिर what would have been its carrying amount had you never changed the classification? 1 million minus 6 साल का depreciation. ठीक है. 8 lakh 80 and 875. What is the lower of the two? 875 is the lower of the two. ठीक है. So your asset is at what value? Your asset is at 8 lakh 85,000. You should then write it down to 8 lakh 75,000 and then continue with whatever subsequent depreciation या जो भी करना है, because now the classification is not held for sale. ठीक है. Its carrying amount before it was classified as held for sale minus any adjustment for depreciation, amortization, or revaluation that would have been recognized had it not been classified as held for sale. In short, if this whole drama had not happened, what would have been the value of this particular item right now? Calculate that value. On the date when the classification is going back, calculate the recoverable amount on that date. Okay. And lower of the two is what the asset should be shown at, which is 8,75,000. Okay. And what will be the accounting entry? Loss on reclassification account debit to non-current asset. Okay. I want you to read the whole example once, or rather read this provision first, then read the example.
Sir, scroll.
Hold on, sir.
Sure. ठीक है. Okay. चलो. One final question. Nash purchased a building for its own use. For its own use, matlab PPE, on 1st of Jan for 1 million and attributed it a 50-year useful life. So, what is the date of acquisition? 1st of Jan 2001. ठीक है. Then, cost of acquisition, $1 million. Useful life, 50 years. Nash uses the revaluation model. Okay. On 31st of December, this building was revalued to 1.2 million. Okay. Now, SLM depreciation per annum will be this upon 50, that is $20,000. So, what will be WDV on 31st of December 2002? कितना होगा? 2 साल का depreciation, right? 20 and 20. So 10 lakh minus 40, this will be $9,60,000. It was revalued to 1.2 million. Revalued amount, $1.2 million is, ठीक है. So what is your revaluation surplus? $2,40,000. ठीक है ना। बाय नॉन करंट असेट अकाउंट डेबिट बाय accumulated depreciation debit to revaluation surplus account credit. कितना?
2 lakh.
This is 12 lakh minus 10 lakh, that is 2 lakh. Accumulated depreciation is 40,000. Revaluation surplus is 2 lakh 40,000. The carrying amount of the asset is 12 lakhs right now, है ना? On 31st of December, the building met the criteria to be classified as held for sale. Its fair value was deemed to be 1.1 million and the cost necessary to sell the building were estimated to be 50,000. ठीक है. So on 31st of December 2003, ठीक है, you will have to revalue first and then reclassify. Correct. How many years have gone by?
1 year.
One. But out of
After the
50
3
years,
years.
2 years went by. So
3 years also.
on 31st of December 2002, after the above entry, remaining useful life is 48 years.
Okay.
Correct? So what is the updated SLM depreciation per annum? 12 lakh upon 48. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Tell me, how much is it?
Says 25,000.
25,000. Now on 31st of December 2003, I will record an entry by depreciation account debit to accumulated depreciation. To accumulated depreciation. ठीक है, कितना? 25,000. Now, what is carrying amount after above entry? Is it not 12 lakh minus 25,000? 11 lakh 75,000. ठीक है. On 31st of December 2003, the building met the criteria to be classified as held for sale. Fair value was deemed to be 1.1 million. ठीक है. Fair value is again 1.1 million, which is basically 11 lakhs, है ना? Downward revaluation है.
Yes, sir.
Downward revaluation will be done in what way? 75 is the amount of downward revaluation. Your entry will
Impairment.
by loss on, let me call it loss on revaluation. I'll not call it impairment loss. Loss on revaluation account debit to non-current asset. है ना? कितना? 75,000. Then this loss gets absorbed through revaluation surplus, right? Revaluation surplus account debit to loss on revaluation account credit 75,000. And the cost, so now you've brought the asset down to 11 lakh. Now change the classification. Now it is a non-current asset held for sale with carrying amount of 11 lakhs. And cost necessary to sell the building were estimated to be 50,000. तो क्या होगा? Valued at lower of carrying amount and fair value less cost to sell. Correct? And the 50,000 का difference will now be shown as selling cost. because ये carrying amount है, this is the fair value. It is shown at fair value less cost to sell. या फिर carrying amount 11 lakh minus 50,000 is 10 lakh 50,000. 50,000 will go to cost of sale. 50,000 should be debited as cost of sale. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
मानव सर पकड़ के बैठ गया, कितना कुछ हो गया ये क्वेश्चन में, क्यों मानव?
नहीं सर, वो वैसे ही थोड़ा अरे,
So this was like multiple things were happening. बार बार it was getting revalued, again and again it was getting depreciated. But non-current asset held for sale बहुत कम occasions पे they have asked, 2 or 3 occasions at best. ट्रिपल ए में पूछते हैं कभी कभी, SBR में भी they ask you, it's not as if they don't, but it can be asked for what, 4 or 5 marks at best, not more than that. ठीक है, perfect. Let's stop here for the day, and we'll continue on Thursday with IAS 10. 35 minutes में मैं छोड़ रहा हूँ आपको, छोटा ही स्टैंडर्ड. यस गौतम.
Sir, now once asset is sold, the revaluation surplus amount, whatever balance, that will be transferred to retained earnings.
Correct. When the
Okay,
asset is sold.
So why not we show in impairment loss like you earlier told it? Why loss on revaluation?
Actually, even when we did downward revaluation of PPE, मैंने कभी भी उसको impairment loss नहीं बोला था.
हाँ,
Indicators of impairment, we'll have to check ना whether those are present or this is because of some other reason. Downward revaluation का biggest reason is impairment, but that is not the only reason why downward revaluation happens. Although 99% of the cases में that is the reason.
because earlier you showed like impairment loss, that's why. By
In
debit impairment.
IAS 36, yes, but here see here ये अलग, this is a separate situation, okay? यहाँ पे this is regular revaluation of a non-current asset. यहाँ पे when I showed impairment loss, यहाँ पे it was a different situation. It was lower of carrying amount and fair value less cost to sell. Here as per IFRS 5, I should debit impairment loss. But here IFRS 5 has not yet come into picture. I'm still dealing with IAS 16 only, na? IFRS 5
Okay,
here at this stage, IFRS 5 will kick in, not at that stage.
okay, sir. So we have to differentiate when it kicks in.
Yes, yes.
But thank you, sir.
ACCA exams, it doesn't make that big of a difference. कुछ भी
Hmm.
करो but answer लिखो. That's the point.
Yes.
ठीक है, चलो.
Okay.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, sir.